A number is doing a lot of work in this announcement: 448 milliseconds. That's the turn latency NVIDIA's Nematron Labs claims for VoiceChat 11B, an open, end-to-end, full-duplex speech-to-speech model released as downloadable weights alongside a deployable container. Not a demo, not an API you rent. Weights. The specifications, as published: real-time tool calling during active dialogue, a single 80GB GPU requirement, and a research-only license that quietly caps what anyone can legally do with it. Each of those 4 facts points in a different direction. Together, they describe something more interesting than another model launch. They describe where conversational AI infrastructure is actually heading and who gets to hold it. To understand the claim, you have to understand what it replaces. Almost every voice assistant you've used runs a cascade. Speech recognition transcribes what you said. A language model reads the transcript and generates text. A text-to-speech system converts that text back into audio. 3 models, 3 handoffs, 3 points of accumulated delay. Worse, the pipeline needs to know when you've stopped talking. That job falls to voice activity detection, essentially a silence timer. So the system waits, then it transcribes, then it thinks, then it speaks. The result is the awkward pause every one of us has learned to tolerate. And it's structural, not incidental. Full-duplex is a term borrowed from telecommunications. A walkie-talkie is half-duplex. One party transmits, the other listens. A telephone is full-duplex, both directions, simultaneously. Applied to a speech model, it means the network is continuously processing incoming audio while it generates outgoing audio. There is no turn-taking state machine bolted on top. Listening and speaking are concurrent operations inside one model. For builders, this collapses the entire stack. No separate transcription step, no silence threshold tuning, no text bottleneck between understanding and speech. It also means interruption becomes native. Cut the model off mid-sentence and it can hear you doing it, because it never stopped listening. The latency figure isn't arbitrary. There's a body of linguistics research behind why it matters. In 2009, a team led by Tanya Stivers published a cross-linguistic study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences examining turn-taking across 10 languages. The finding: the median gap between conversational turns clusters around 200 milliseconds, remarkably consistent across cultures. Human speakers are exquisitely sensitive to deviations from that window. Delays past roughly half a second read as hesitation, confusion, or disengagement. 448 milliseconds sits just inside that perceptual boundary. It isn't human equal, but it's the difference between a conversation and a transaction, and for anything running unsupervised with a customer on the line, that distinction is the product. The second specification deserves more attention than it's getting: real-time tool calling during active dialogue. In conventional agent architectures, a tool call is a stop. The model decides it needs external data, halts generation, queries an API, waits, then resumes. In text, that's invisible. In voice, it's dead air. If VoiceChat 11B can dispatch and receive function calls while audio continues flowing in both directions, that changes the architecture of a voice agent. The model can say, "Let me pull that up," and actually pull it up, concurrently, not sequentially. That's the gap between a scripted phone tree and something that can genuinely transact. Order lookups, account verification, live scheduling. The hardware requirement is a single 80GB GPU, practically speaking, an A100 or H100 class card. At 11 billion parameters, the weights themselves occupy roughly 22 GB in half precision. The rest of that memory budget goes to key-value cache, audio encoding and decoding, and headroom for concurrent sessions. Real-time speech is unforgiving about memory bandwidth. That's a serious requirement for a hobbyist and a trivial one for an enterprise. A few dollars an hour rented, a 5-figure capital purchase owned. The container matters just as much. Shipping a deployable image means this can run inside a hospital network, a bank, or a classified environment, where sending audio to a third-party API is simply not permitted. And then the constraint. The release is governed by a research-only license, non-commercial, which means every use case in NVIDIA's own framing, voice agents, live customer support, real-time assistance, is precisely what you cannot legally ship. This is a familiar pattern. Open weights function as a reference architecture, a benchmark, and a recruiting signal. Commercial deployment gets routed toward paid enterprise offerings. It's worth noting NVIDIA has relaxed licensing on prior Nematron releases over time, moving several to more permissive terms. Whether that happens here is unconfirmed. For now, the honest reading is this. VoiceChat 11b is a demonstration of what's technically possible, published so the field can verify it, not a production asset. Context matters here. VoiceChat 11b is not the first attempt at this. Kyutai's Moshi, released in July 2024 under a permissive license, was arguably the first credible open full-duplex speech model. OpenAI shipped its real-time API that October, fast, capable, and entirely closed. Alibaba's Qwen 2.5 Omni arrived in March 2025 under Apache 2.0. What NVIDIA appears to be contributing is the industrial packaging, enterprise-grade latency, native tool use, and a container built for on-premises deployment on hardware NVIDIA also happens to sell. That last point isn't cynicism. It's the business model. Every one of these releases makes GPUs more necessary. So what does this unlock, if the specifications hold? The near-term answer is unglamorous. The vast infrastructure of voice-mediated work, support lines, intake calls, scheduling, triage, systems that currently fail because the latency makes them intolerable. The longer-term answer is about location. A model that runs on one GPU inside a container with no external API dependency can operate where cloud voice AI legally cannot. Regulated healthcare, defense, air-gapped facilities. The research license delays that. It doesn't prevent it. The measured conclusion, 448 milliseconds isn't a breakthrough number. It's a threshold number. And thresholds are what determine whether a technology stays a demo or quietly becomes the default.